What travel photography really means is our topic today on Luminar Coffee Break, and we have a very special guest starting now. Hello, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to present our special guest. He's a full-time travel photographer and an educator. His dedication and discipline to travel photography has made him one of the most sought-after speakers for travel photography around. He'll be appearing with Russell Brown for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame photo, I believe, conference coming up real soon. It gives me great pleasure, everyone, to introduce to you my good friend, David Williams. Hey, David.
Hey, Vanelli, how you doing?
Awesome. All right, David, it's always great to see you. David was the one who single-handedly made our England trip just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And we'll talk more about that later on. But all right, so David, today you're going to talk about what it really means to be a travel photographer. And again, you're full-time at it. So I'm going to let you take over and just wow us with your knowledge.
Cool. So I figured the best way to do this would be to explain what travel photography means to me, what I'm currently doing as a travel photographer, and throw in some tips along the way about how to improve your travel photography. In fact, let me do this thing here and share my screen, and we'll go over here. So that. Can you still hear me okay? With
beautiful.
This running?
Yep.
Can you see the screen?
Looks
Perfect.
great.
Okay, cool. It worked. So this is Coffee Fernweh. This is my van. Coffee Fernweh is a word I basically made up. It's come from two languages. So this photo was taken in Iceland, and Iceland is by far my favorite place on the planet. And coffee, K-O-F-I, is Icelandic for cabin. It also is Icelandic for coffee, the drink, which is, conveniently placed translation for the show. But yeah, it's a cabin. And then Fernweh is German. So this van is a Mercedes. It's a German van. And Fernweh means wanderlust, or the desire to travel. So this is Coffee Fernweh, my cabin with a desire to travel. At the moment, I am on a bit of a mission post-lockdown, shall we say? And that mission is to just get out there and explore the world a bit more. And this van has been my way to do it. So, as I said, this is in Iceland. It's round the corner, this photo, from a place called Öxarárfoss. It's a waterfall in Thingvellir National Park. If you've ever been to Iceland, you'll know Thingvellir National Park, just outside of Reykjavik. It's on the way to the Golden Circle. So I got the van from the UK over to Iceland by driving through Europe, getting on a couple of ferries, and I used this van as my way to get around as many Nordic countries as I possibly could this winter just passed. So now that mission is out of the way, I'm looking for what's then going to be doing. But obviously the reason I'm here is to explain what travel photography really is. So, in my opinion, travel photography is unlike any other genre of photography, because every other genre has a subject, whereas travel photography has a feeling, it has a result. And if let's say you're a landscape photographer, you are shooting a landscape. You're a portrait photographer, you're shooting people, or you're taking photos of people, we should probably phrase it that way. Food photographer, you're taking photos of food. With travel photography, it's not the subject, it's the result. So with travel photography, the whole point is to make somebody want to be there in that place, at that location, to sell that, hotel, destination, whatever it may be. Your aim as a travel photographer, be it as a pro or a hobbyist, is to make the person want to be there. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the photos I've taken and some of the places I've been on this trip throughout the Nordics. So I crossed over from England. Isn't that nice? I crossed over from England on the Channel Tunnel. I turned left through France and Belgium, and I spent the first night in Holland, in the Netherlands. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site called Kinderdijk. And this windmill, I don't know if you can see the anno, as in year in Latin, at the top, but you can't see the numbers. You can only see the 40. This windmill was built in 1740. It is coming up to 300 years old, and it's still
Wow.
standing, still works. I mean, they don't use it, but it works. It can turn if it needs. And this is part of Holland's infrastructure for moving water around and how they reclaim land and all that, blah, 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 blah. But the whole point is, hopefully, this photo makes you want to be there, to go to this UNESCO World Heritage Site. And if you were the UNESCO World Heritage Site or a hotel nearby, or an activity or a tour organizer for this location, then hopefully this is an image that you'd want to buy to sell that tour, that location, and to make the people want to be there. So this sunrise was beautiful. It was cold. I don't know. I tried to convey the cold through the toning, but it was very cold that morning, and that was the first stop. So anyway, I then went up through. So I left Kinderdijk. I went into Germany, and then I went up north into Denmark, and I spent the night on the coast. And I woke up the following morning to this view. This is an abandoned lighthouse. So. This lighthouse was about to fall into the sea. They built some train track situation underneath it and moved it about 100 meters, about 300 foot away from the sea, from the cliffs that were crumbling away where it was going to fall into the ocean. So again, I'm hoping with the sense of place and scale and the drama that's going on in this image, if you were a tourist board in this area, or if you were someone that's taking people to this lighthouse or the nearby region, hopefully it does its job of making you want to be there and go and see it. And that's the point of travel photography. So what we've seen so far can pretty much both landscapes. They're buildings, but they can count as landscape for photos. But as a travel photo, it's taking that extra step to making people want to be there. So then I got on a ferry from Denmark and I went over to the Faroe Islands.
Huh.
This is, what do you think, Jake?
Oh God, I love it.
Do you want to be there?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, and you had me all the way up until you said it was cold on the one. But even then, I thought, you know what? I would love to be there at the windmill. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, cool. Well, by this point, we're now in November. And the Faroe Islands are, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I'll quickly just place them on the map for you. If you go off the north of the UK, you've got Iceland slightly off to the west. Halfway in between is the Faroe Islands. And these are 18 islands that are just full of drama. They're so rugged. And honestly, the sea, I think there's no point on the islands, any of the islands, where you're more than 3 miles from the sea. So it's heavily influenced by that. And so taking a photo in the Faroe Islands that has water is something that really conveys that and makes the person want to be there. The drama of the sky, the waves crashing on the shore, the light that comes in and lights up certain features across the place, that is the whole point of making somebody want to be there. So again, hopefully it's done its job. So while we're in the Faroe Islands, I also went just down the road, and this is literally just down the road. It's on the same island, and it was about half an hour time difference. And you can see the incredible difference you get from one place to another. You can just about see that bird up in the sky at the top. But again, it's the drama, it's the ruggedness, and it's hopefully making you want to go and explore this place. There's just enough in it so that you can see what's going on, but there's just enough sort of hidden and cropped out, and I don't know, it makes you wonder, if I turned right, what's there? What else would I see? And makes the person want to be there. So when you're composing a photo like this, you're not only thinking about the composition, but you're thinking about the psychology behind it, and about how is this person going to feel when they look at this? Is it going to do its job of making the person want to go into this place or see this? You know, it could be this particular village or building, but it could be the Faroe Islands as a whole. So that's Dranganir over in the back there, which is one of the famous rock formations. Everyone gets a photo of Dranganir from the cliff to the left, looking out towards it. It's got, you can just about see there's the arch in the middle. So that brings on something else, which I've called the Eiffel Tower effect. I think I was talking to you about this, Vanelli, years ago. I'm pretty sure I was talking to you about this, where basically I'm using the Eiffel Tower as the go-to example because so many people have taken the same photo time and time and time again that if you go and you Google image search the Eiffel Tower, you're going to get millions upon millions of results. And in some of the research I've done, the statistics show that if you Google Paris, 80% of the photos that will be returned are of the Eiffel Tower. So it means what I'm getting at here is that if you such a common place, something that's photographed so often, you have to really think outside of the box about how you're going to shoot that familiar place differently. So this is an example of that. Everybody shoots that rock formation from the cliff on the left, looking, and it's the triangular rock with the hole in the middle. It's a famous location. But here it is from a completely different angle that makes you think differently about the location and about the photo itself, the composition, the timing, the lighting, everything. So I then went down the road a bit. I climbed up a mountain. And this is another one. So this fjord. Do you like it?
I do, but wait, is there going to be climbing involved if you and I hang out?
There wasn't a lot. There was a...
Oh, are you still there? One sec. There we go. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that. Yep.
Cool. So yeah, there was the trail is flat. It was straight out behind me, so don't worry about that.
All right, that's not bad then.
So the fjord here, it makes that dramatic S-curve shape. You can see the S-curve forming, but again, everyone shoots this from the same place, the same location, the same thing. So if I'm going to sell it, if I shoot the same place, I need everything to be completely different. I need the location, I need the lighting to be different, perhaps different time of day to the usual photos that sell of that location, or I need to shoot that location in a different way. And this is how I've done that. Firstly, I've come to a different perspective, so I've added a lot of depth, whereas that famous shot of this location with the S-curve and the usually just the background. I've introduced a foreground, a midground, and a background, and then beyond that, the sky is perfect, which was nice. And then coming back in towards the foreground, I've added myself. So I went and stood in the shot and gave a sense of scale and a human element to the scene. So this is something that is going to stand out and hopefully put me above and beyond all the other photos out there. It's more than just a landscape photo, it's a travel photo, because hopefully it makes you want to be there.
Yep. It's funny that now you're
Just
saying
like
this, it's making sense now. I see what you're saying. So instead of just taking a photo of the Eiffel Tower, it's more like a lifestyle shoot too. You're hey, you can live this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So with the Eiffel Tower itself, in fact, let me quickly just show you this one for the difference between adding a person and not. So that's it without me. That's it with me. It's the sort of they're very cool, very dramatic. The long exposure on that one, because obviously I couldn't stand still for that long. It's long. It's about a second exposure, that one. This is a few seconds. But the difference between adding somebody and not in this context of travel photography, it is that human element, because it psychologically makes the person looking at the photo think, well, I could be that person. If I went there, I could do that. I could go and stand in that spot and I'd have that cool view and have that awesome experience. So hopefully that's it doing its job. This is a cool photo. It's got a foreground, a background, it's a long exposure, the light's about right, but there's a huge difference between having a person and not having a person. But let's quickly talk about the Eiffel Tower itself. So if in such a famous example as the Eiffel Tower, or anything like the Taj Mahal, or Washington, D.C., the White House, anything like that, where it has been shot over and over again, and everyone's got the same shot because they stood in the same place, took a photo at eye level at the same time of day, then everyone's got the shot. One of the biggest ways that you can make yourself stand out is by having, not by having the Eiffel Tower or the other object as the subject of the photo, but as a feature of the photo. So rather than just cropping in and making the Eiffel Tower the most prominent thing in there, take a step back, look at what else is there, what else is in the locality. So you could have the rest of the skyline and focus on something in the foreground, and the Eiffel Tower is just sitting there in the background. It is there, it's obvious that it's Paris, it's clear where you are, it's a cool shot of the subject, the Eiffel Tower, but that isn't the subject of the photo. Whatever's in the foreground becomes the subject, and you can use a different technique to bring it out, such as framing, or having a really good depth and good layering to your image. Having it as the feature of the photo gives you that sense of place and makes it a cool shot. but it gives you a completely different shot because I guarantee that whatever you're using as your other element, somebody else hasn't already thought of. So then I went to Iceland, and that was awesome. Look at this. This is one of those Super Tubes. Those tires, those tires are about, they're just above my hips. They're enormous.
Wow.
And they run them at 1 or 2 PSI so that they can get the grip through the snow there. So that's just a cool shot. I just like that was a good day out for me. But hopefully it does its job. I mean, it's an experience that people aren't going to get because I'm fortunate enough that my friend is in search and rescue. So I went with them to take some photos for their new website for their vehicles and everything. But I just thought it was a cool thing to show where I was. This one is something you can do. So I thought I'd throw this in because although it's aerial and it's from a plane, so I'm in one plane shooting the other plane. Some of the stuff that I'm going to say about this relates to drone photography, and drone photography is obviously huge. I guarantee there are people watching that have drones and they're looking for tips because it's now. So I don't know if you know this, but DJI are the world's largest camera manufacturer following their buyout of Hasselblad, but they're also the world's largest aircraft manufacturer.
Oh, wow.
So that's why there's so much progression and so many advances being made in the field of cameras, drones. Their competition predominantly comes from other companies like Parrot and Affy, and there were some tries or some attempts by GoPro and some other companies. But anyway, if you're getting into drone photography because it's become so much more accessible, and because the quality of the cameras and the range of the controls has been progressed so much in recent years, then obviously you're going to be looking for some tips and tricks. And one of the biggest ones, so as I said, this is a plane, but we'll come back to the actual plane stuff. One of the biggest things to consider the fact that it is a camera. And a lot of people, when they get their drone controller in their hand and they start flying their drone, they suddenly forget that it's a camera and it just becomes this cool toy. And because they're now seeing the world from a different perspective, they just shoot all over the place without really putting in the thought. So it is very important to remember that your drone is still a camera and it's just removed from you. It's over there. It's in a different place. It's up in the sky. You still need to apply the same rules of composition. You still need to be shooting at golden hour when the light's beautiful. You still need to be thinking about everything that you know as a photographer, but it's just applied differently because it's over there in the sky. It's not in your hand like the camera. So anyway, when you shoot something like this one, this is that sense of scale again. So I wouldn't obviously fly a drone and shoot an aircraft. That would be silly. But with this one, an air-to-air shot, having the other plane there has given a sense of scale and the sense of place of this shot over Iceland. If that other plane wasn't in the shot, that would be boring. There'd be no interest. It would just be textures and, split down the middle. Whereas placing that aircraft on that third, going into the wide open part of the shot, gives you the scale and it gives you the interest. And then we change subject completely to this is completely fake. but this is important because this is an ice cave in Vatnajökull National Park. I want you to say that Vatnajökull.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, Vatnajökull National Park is the biggest glacier. Vatnajökull is the biggest glacier in Europe. And it's full of ice caves all around the edges on the glacial tongues that stick out from the edge of the ice cap. There are these ice caves, and every now and then there'll be a hole that goes through them. There's a famous hole doing the rounds on Instagram at the moment. It's like a teardrop shape. I'm sure you've seen it if you look at any Iceland-related stuff. But this one was completely different. This is just a solid hole straight up. And when I was looking up through it, it was in the middle of the day during a whiteout. There was a snowstorm, and so above the hole there was nothing interesting. It was literally just a white cloud of snow, and there was nothing cool going on there. And while I was shooting it, I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to be here at night and see the northern lights? And so obviously that's what happened in my mind, and that's what happened in the post process. And The reason I threw this in there is because I want to quickly talk about post-process when it comes to travel photography. So the term Photoshop obviously is something that has become trendy for any editing of a photo, and it's brought some bad connotations with it, so that people, you know, body shaming and things like that have come off the back of it because of the things that have been done on magazine covers and in beauty magazines. And people think it means just going crazy and doing something completely wacky. My interpretation of what you should and shouldn't do, that you should do things that are realistic, that could happen. So this could happen. This is not beyond possibility to look up through this ice cave hole in the middle of the night and see the Northern Lights overhead. That is something that could happen. And the Northern Lights are a photo. They're not, you know, completely fake. It's layered up. And so when you're editing a travel photo, the edits you should be doing are things that should be able to happen naturally. There shouldn't be things that couldn't possibly happen. You shouldn't switch out things that couldn't possibly be there. It should all be. It's not a bad thing to edit at all. The whole point of what we do as photographers in retouching is to change things to make them the way we thought they were, which is why I quite often say that lend me your eyes and I'll show you what I see. It's one of the phrases I've been throwing around for a few years, because it's your interpretation of the scene or the place thrown down
Well
as
said.
a photo.
Well said.
Thank you. So this one is fake, but it could happen. I'd love to have seen it in real life. I absolutely will, but that's what this one is. So back to the plane with the drone tips. So this one's got the plane in for scale, but with drone shots, something that people often do is they just shoot straight down. It's called a top-down shot. There's a hashtag top-down on Instagram if you want to get some tips and tricks and see some examples. But here's the thing. When you're shooting top-down, you should be looking interesting, because quite often with our photography, it's the sky and the light that makes things interesting. So when you're top-down, you're removing that. So this one is a plane. It's not a drone shot, but it is an aerial shot. It's got the plane in for scale. If that plane wasn't there and it was a top-down shot, you've got the textures and the lines. You could position, you could crop it so that you're on certain, like the thirds, or with this one, you might even just about have a golden spiral in there as well. But you should, if you're shooting top-down with a drone and you're trying to get that result of somebody wanting to be there, you need to be thinking about all the other things that are going on. What light's hitting the foreground? What are the colors? What are the patterns and the textures and those sorts of things? Otherwise, having the sky makes a great aerial shot, because it's taken everything that we do in photography, because we usually shoot with the sky when we're outdoors anyway, and not obviously when we're indoors shooting architecture or something. And it gives you that relatability. It looks like a normal photo that people recognize, but you've just moved your position. You're just higher up. The reason I picked this particular one is because of another tip, which relates to drone photography. Do you see how the plane's breaking the horizon line? It's awesome if you can have something breaking the horizon in an aerial shot or a drone shot. And in this case, it's the plane, but perhaps a building reaching up high, or a tree or a mountain that breaks the horizon line. I haven't quite put my finger on why, but it is a good thing. So with this one here, we've got the third, the horizon's on the top, rule of thirds, the plane's and rule of thirds, and the plane is breaking that horizon line. So when you're flying a drone and you want to do some travel photography with it, you've got to think differently to if you're doing an aerial survey or a real estate photo shoot or something like that. Don't go too high, and keep something down there that's going to break that horizon line, that's going to give you that depth and that perspective and make it look really awesome. And then we've got the textures and the patterns that I mentioned. So this one is almost a top-down shot. The plane is in flight. It's really, really close to the ground. But we've got the lines, they break it into thirds. We've got the different colors, and we've got the patterns, and we've got the textures. We've got a lot going on here that if it was just over to the right or just over to the left, or something was slightly different about this shot, it wouldn't quite work in the same way it does. Hopefully, because of all that and the psychology behind it, it makes the person looking at this want to be there. I want to go back there, that's for sure. I'm hoping you guys would want to go and see these sorts of things as well.
Yes, awesome.
And then my next specialist subject is the Northern Lights. If anyone follows me, you'll be well aware that I'm mad on the Northern Lights. I'm so into the science behind it. It's unreal. I love the fun of forecasting and chasing the lights and figuring out what's going to happen, where and when, and getting myself in the right place for the photos that I want to get. So this one, as I say, is Iceland still. And the foreground and the background here as basically the landscape eye are the foreground and the background, and the interest comes from the brightest part of the scene, which is up in the sky. And a good Northern Light shot makes the person want to be there. It's going to sell a package tour, it's going to sell a Northern Lights hunt, and any of those things. But there are other things going on in this image, like the river leading through that leads up to the mountain in the back. There's light hitting from the right hand side, which is a town called Vik, that's lighting that up. Everything that's going on here with the depth and the interest hopefully does its job of making you want to be there. When are we going, Benelli? You coming?
Yep, I love it.
Have you seen the Northern Lights?
Yes, all by accident, believe it or not.
Okay,
we
cool.
we were in the Badlands, and my buddy tapped me on the shoulders to look behind you. There it was. But when I'm looking at that, like you just said, the fact you wanted to be there, I kept thinking, where were you standing? You know what I mean? Where was he standing when he took this shot that he got to see this incredible view, in front of him?
Yeah.
So you're right. You're doing your job on getting somebody motivated to want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad it worked. So still in Iceland this time. This is Godafoss. Godafoss. If you
it moved.
English D.
You want to go back to it? Yeah. There you go. Now you got it.
This one.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this waterfall is up in the north of Iceland. It's right by the road. Everyone that goes around the north stops to see this particular waterfall. It's famous for when Iceland was went from Norse gods to Christianity. This is Godfalls, where they threw all the Norse stuff over to get rid of it when they decided to be Christian. That's where the name comes from. But anyway, the point of this one is everyone shoots a waterfall in more or less the same way. And so you need to think differently. Again, if you want to sell your image and you're going to stand out from the crowd and you're going to be the person that makes people want to be there, then it's all about a couple of things, which is light, thinking differently, and showing something that makes you want to be there. This particular waterfall is always shot from the same place. There's a viewing platform, and everyone gets that straight in with there's two wide tiers, and then in the middle there's a thin stream of water. But getting to a different place safely, in the terms of, or in case of a waterfall, and getting a different shot that shows everything in a different way, like this. I'm going to quickly break down the fact that most of the time you would be shooting this slightly to the left, so the water was on the right of the frame, coming into the frame and flowing out into the empty space. And I've shifted it over because I think there's not a lot going on there, and to have it flowing out gives the scale of Iceland in the background behind it, of the places that you'd want to go and get lost and explore. There's a couple more elements of the water and the river going on over on the right. The composition of the rule of thirds is there. And the brightest element, obviously the sky, starts you off there and then you go across the water. But then I think you go and get lost over on the right. And it makes me think I'd want to go and just walk around there and see what's there. It looks like there's nothing there, but maybe I could find something. It's that sort of, it's the psychology behind what you're doing while you're doing it. So like I said, you'd usually be canted over, tilted around to the left a little bit and have the water on the right, which is like the rule. But if you can come up with a way to break the rules and a reason to break the rules, then there's nothing wrong with breaking the rules. And it's going to give you an image that's going to be different, it's going to stand out and hopefully do that job of making somebody want to be there. Then I went to Norway.
Ooh.
So this is just to set the scene. This is the kind of landscape you find in Norway. This is up in the Lofoten Islands. This is Svolvær, which means the city of light, I think, or the Bay of Light. So, something about light. So this is another example of shooting things differently. This triangular mountain and this yellow house on the island of Sekresoy are always shot from the same place. Everybody goes just slightly over to the right of where I am and back a bit, which gives you the framing of, do you see me or do you just see the screen? Just
No,
there?
we see the screen. Yep.
Okay.
We see your screen.
How do I don't know if I can bring it. Okay. So, are you aware of the photo I'm talking about? So you've got the
Yes.
building there and then the pyramid behind it, and it kind of frames it, it gives it some depth and all that. But everyone's got that shot. So if you're going to take a play, this, by the way, this is a really good restaurant for Nelly. I think you'd love it. It's called Anita's. The food's delicious. So everyone's got this shot of this building with the men in it. You know, they line up as triangles. It's cool. You know, yeah, quirky. Love it. Brilliant. Everyone's done it. This is a way of thinking differently. So you've got the same relationship of the triangles, but you're shooting it from a different angle. You've got where the building's cropped slightly, which more focus on the mountain, the lights there, in the reflection of the windows, you can see mountains in the background. Everything looks really cool, but it's just a different perspective of that same place. So if somebody's looking to buy this, or to buy an image of this location, then hopefully this is going to be the one that stands out, because you know the location, you recognize it, you know what it is, but it's different. It's not the same as the shot everyone else has got. And the other reason I put this one up actually is because of copy space. So as a professional photographer, you want to be thinking about other aspects, what your image is actually going to be used for. And quite often magazines, advertisements, billboards, anything where they buy it for any advertising purpose, they're going to want to put graphics all over the picture. And this one's got copy space up the top. You could write Norway up there, it would be big and bold, you know, put your prices down on the left. So thinking about the application of the image is just going to give you that little bit of advantage, because the graphic designers that are looking for images to use, well, this one's different. It's got copy space. Everything's going on there. You can see what it is and where it is. It's clearly Norway, even if you don't know that it's Anita's restaurant in Sekresoy. It's, yeah. So.
Oh, wow.
This is just a silly one. Cats. Cats are still the most ridiculously performing subject. Cats of Instagram, cats or whatever. I took this photo. This is a Eurasian lynx. You can see the other one in the background there, just out of focus. This is Eurasian lynx in January, enjoying the snow, having a little nap in the middle of the day. But when I posted this photo, it got a whole different load of attention purely because it's a cat. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this, and I posted an Instagram reel of the cat yawning, and it went crazy viral. So, cats, subject matter. The subject matter that you're shooting and taking photos of and putting into perspective is important to consider. There's no point shooting something that nobody cares about. Everyone loves cats. So another one is panoramic views. So if you look towards just right of center, that's the triangular mountain that we saw in the other photo. This is Reina, and then Sekresoy is just there in the middle, and Hamnoy is up there on the right. But this is a drone panorama that gives you a contrast of color from orange through to blue. And those are very, very complementary colors. They're the reason sunsets work so well. So having them oriented differently and going across laterally instead of going from top to bottom like on a normal sunset, it gives this image a little bit of an edge. And the reason, as I say, is sunsets work so well is because of blue and orange being opposite on the color wheel, and the complements that they give each other is something that we recognize as a nice color scheme. And so applying it in this way makes this panorama work nicely. If it was all blue, there'd be something different about it. It would be a different vibe. It would feel really cold. It would be quite bland. But having that little bit of color coming in from the side there makes this panorama stand out. Panoramas are an awesome thing to do because they give you a different perspective of a location. They allow much more to come in to the image. And although I wouldn't suggest posting it on Instagram because of not taking up a lot of space, in terms of selling images and the images that are bought for billboards and magazines and adverts, those sorts of purposes, this is an amazing way to give to portray a place and make somebody want to be there. As I said, that's the whole point of it, is to make you want to be there. I for one, would like to go and have a look around that village down at the bottom in the middle. So hopefully that one's doing its job as well.
Oh,
this is that's that same Triangle Mountain again. So this is the same place. This is an example of the Northern Lights. When you're shooting the Northern Lights, or any if you're shooting starscapes or anything where it's involving the sky, it's important to still apply some kind of rules in some way. So this one we've got it on the bottom third there with the interest of the mountains. It gives it some depth. We've got the reflection down on the bottom, so we've got some interest down there, even though it is just water. It's still important when you shoot any subject to think about what these compositional rules are and how they apply to us as photographers, and doing it in such a way, hopefully, again, that makes people want to be there. So this is another example of that, breaking that horizon line, making it irregular, having something leading in, and having those Northern Lights dancing there. This is, what's it called? Nusfjordveien. So at the end of this road is a little fishing town called Nusfjord, which is up in the Lofoten Island in Norway.
Real
then I
quick,
went to
Phil,
Finland.
I'm sorry, Phil asked, are any of these composites? Are these just...
No, hang on. That one, fake sky.
Oh yeah.
That one, the top of the sky is fake. It was a very grey day.
Yeah, but gotcha. Yeah, but you're not mixing and matching. Yeah, you're not mixing and matching photos.
No, other than that, they're all normal. Nice. This is one of those. Is it a blood moon or harvest moon? It's one of those special moons shot through the forest in Lapland, in Finnish Lapland. But it's the moon's there, but it's sort of slightly hidden a bit. The foreground is there, so it's giving you loads of depth, and hopefully, again, like, you want to go in there and look around in those trees, because there's the separation and depth of field and the interest and everything. Hopefully, makes you want to go and be there. And again, with this one, the fact that there's nothing there in the background, I wonder what's in the background. Is there more forest, or does it open up into a fjord? Anything like that. So again, hopefully, does the job of making you want to be there, which is the most important thing. And then, Finelli, I got bored of winter.
Finally.
So I went to Croatia, but obviously some things happened in the world. I was very close to where those things were happening, so I came back to the UK. But so this is one of the last shots from the tour, which is Croatia, just a top-down. But again, the top-down shots, it's important that there's something interesting going on there, that you follow some of the compositional rules and you think about what's going on. So that
awesome
is, where am I? There awesome. I am. So
there you are, but no, this was amazing.
Travel photography, in my opinion, awesome. That's what it's all about. It's all about making a viewer want to be there.
Awesome. So, and we're gonna pick up with some of the questions. And again, I do want to point out that David kept mentioning it's not so much these are the locations you're at. He's saying when you're at a location that you're at, use these tips and tricks. Use that feeling to where, I'm sorry, I got to bring it up. So when you're there, Phil, in Philadelphia, and I show you my barber's chair where Al Capone was in, I want you to feel like, you know what? I wish I was there taking that photo. So, but
I have taken that photo.
I know you have. All right.
Yes.
So let's jump in. Jim, and by the way, for those that have questions in the chat, because Nick, I saw you had a really good question, and technical questions, we'll just unmute your mic or raise your hand, and we'll ask those. But Jim, fire away.
Yeah, when I saw you in the photos, I mean, we're all aware that our cameras have 10-second timers, but it looks like you had to take more than 10 seconds to get around the edge. Were you having somebody else fire off your camera, or did you have one of those electronic wireless ones?
So that was taken with a Nikon Z6. and so I was using the SnapBridge Nikon app to take
Oh,
that one.
nice.
So basically, you can control the whole camera through the phone, which you can do on. I think you can do that on every mirrorless camera now, and a lot of the later DSLRs you can do it with. So I was just firing it with the app on the phone, having already dialed in the settings.
Nice.
That's a great idea. Thanks.
Great. I didn't even think of that one.
Welcome.
Joe. Unmute your mic.
Hi, my question was about doing drone photography in multiple countries with all of their various requirements and things. Is
Yep.
it difficult?
Yep. So
You require permits for every country?
in the US, you've got the FAA that looks after all of that. If you want to do it commercially, you need to take your Part 107. So there's a similar method in every country. In Europe, because
Okay.
of the European Union, it's all standardized. So once you've got the European permit or license, then you can do it anywhere in the European Union. But the most important thing to do is to research every country that you plan on going to. And here's why. In 2016, 2017, I was with a bunch of photographers, and we went to, where did we go? We went to Portugal. Oh, right. So I was with Scott Kelby. He had his Lisbon Worldwide Photo Walk, and then we went off to Morocco afterwards. And I had my drone with me. And as we were leaving the airport, you know the scanners the TSA make you go through when you go into the airport? They had those as you left. And I thought, well, this is a bit weird. This is the first time I've seen this leaving an airport. I wondered what they were scanning for. And it turns out the only reason they were there is to catch drones in people's baggage. And I had my drone. And so I was removed when they found it in there. I had to go to this office with this dude so it's an Arabic country, but they also speak French. I speak neither. So there was a language barrier while this guy was taking my drone away from me. And I thought I was never going to see it again. So that was the worst, 5 or 6 days of my life, thinking they've taken my favorite thing in the world, my drone, it's gone. But fortunately, when I got back to the airport, they gave it back to me. I had to pay a fine, it was like $10. It was ridiculous, but it was the fine. And then they went and gave it back to me. So to avoid that sort of stuff, do your research about what the rules are. And so you don't end up like I did that one time. I've learned my lesson. I'm never doing that again.
And I don't think you can hide that.
Where you just can't take a drone.
And I don't think you can hide that drone very well. Bill.
Mm-mm.
Good morning. I tend, as I edit my photographs, I tend to click on the black and white just to see what it's going to look like, see if I want to process that. And as I was looking at your Northern Light pictures, it made me wonder, have you ever seen any taken in infrared? What that would look like?
No. I bet it would look cool though, because there is light from the infrared spectrum.
I'm thinking it might.
I don't think I ever have, but you know what I'm going to do as soon as this finishes? I'm going to go. That would be cool. So in terms of editing a Northern Lights photo, when you're looking at the black and white point on Northern Lights photos, you're looking completely differently to most other shots. You want to bring up a little bit of the detail that's in the black, so you want to raise the black point just a tad. But then something I often do is I give an S curve. So it's something that's commonly done to Milky Way and star shots. It works really well for Northern Lights as well. So having a little S curve when you're editing Northern Lights nighttime shot is
Nice.
like a little nugget.
Very good.
It's worth knowing.
Awesome. All right,
Thanks.
John Wells.
Yeah, well, I have to say we did a tour of Iceland, an overseas adventure travel tour last fall, and it was mid-September, and you had to have rain pants and a down vest underneath a rain jacket, and it was 46 was at a high temperature, but it was most incredible sights, and actually the clouds were phenomenal most of the time because of the weather coming in. My question, we saw the Northern Lights in a parking lot in the hotel in Akureyri, Whoopi, but it was a treat. But my question of your Northern Lights picture is, what was your exposure and how did you do it? Because they were amazing.
Thank you. The wider the lens, the better. So I always use a 14 millimeter end of a 14 to 24 Nikkor lens. Your aperture should be wide open. So this one's 2.8, but if you've got a lens that goes wider, go as wide as you can. You want to get as much light in as quickly as possible. And then ISO. So I always start at 2200, and then from there, along with the shutter speed, I'll figure out what's going to happen. So if I need more ISO or less ISO. With the state of image sensors at the moment in cameras, you can really bump up that ISO because there is light there, there is light available, so the noise doesn't really matter all that much, and there's not going to be a lot of it. So as well as thinking about what ISO I need, I'm also thinking about what shutter speed I need. And the way I think about that with the Northern Lights is I liken it to a waterfall. So if you want your water to be flowing and moving about, obviously you want a slower shutter speed. If you want to freeze that action, then you want a faster shutter speed. The only difference being, in terms of the Northern Lights, a faster shutter speed is 1 or 2 seconds, and a slower shutter speed is 20 to 30 seconds. You don't want to go beyond that because obviously you can apply the 500 rule if you want, but as a rule of thumb, about 25 seconds, you're going to start getting stars, getting star trails, and things like that. So yeah, if the Northern Lights are dancing and they're really bright and really fast, you can get away with 2, 3, 4 second exposures. But just think of it like a waterfall, and then use the ISO to control the light after that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I have to say, it was my first time shooting Northern Lights, and I don't even remember what I did. I think I had it on the Idiot Automatic function for my Sony camera. And I got some vague things, but I shot in the RAW, and I was able to enhance the color quite a lot using Luminar AI, but it worked a little bit. But thank you. Excellent ideas.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Niels. Unmute your mic, so press the space bar or unmute.
Yeah, I liked all the pictures you took. But what about the people? I mean, there's a lot of festivals with colorful people in dress and all like that time. Whenever you go to use them in those shots, how are you positioning them and still getting the so-called panoramics?
You'll notice I didn't throw anything in there like that. That's not my style of photo. Yeah. But if I was shooting something like that, I'd be thinking more about model releases and things like that, because obviously I'm looking to sell those photos. If there's anyone in there that's recognizable, then that means I can't sell it for certain things. It can be editorial, but there's not much money there. There's all these other things that I'm thinking about. But yeah, like, I mean, if you're capturing festivals and people, I'm thinking like in India with the dry paint, and I'm thinking about music festivals and things like that. If you've got those sorts of crowds of people, then obviously you want to be capturing that action. And in those cases, it's quite often the case that you're cropping in close and leaving a bit of mystery around the edges. So people are filling in what's actually happening with their mind while you're giving them one thing to look at and one thing to focus on. So one person with an awesome expression and a great reaction to whatever it is, cropping around the edges so that you can see that there are more people, but you can't necessarily see what's happening with them. It makes people think, oh, I wonder what is happening with those people. They must be having fun like the one in the middle. So that's the kind of thing I'd be thinking there, but that isn't really my style of photography.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So I hope that was helpful.
All right, Holger?
Just unmute. Very interesting. My question is going just the opposite way. Have you ever been to Diamond Beach? And if, how's the crowd factor of that location?
I have, and because, so somewhere specifically Diamond Beach, most of the people that visit there, probably about 70% of the people that visit there, are on a day trip from Reykjavik, which is 4 hours away. And so at sunrise and sunset, the only people that are going to be there are the ones that are staying locally in local hotels. So those times of day where you've got the best light, you've also got least people because the crowds are so far away on their bus ride. So specifically for Diamond Beach or Bredemeerstranden, that's it's kind of ideal because the best light has the least people. If you've got somewhere that is crowded and there are loads of crowds, then quite simply the best thing to do is to find a composition over or away from where the crowd is, or to just sit and wait. I know people that will go and ask people to move and things like that. I don't feel comfortable with that unless it's taking an hour, then I'll just sit and wait. I'll get myself set up and wait for the right moment to happen, and try not to fight the crowds and try not to let it beat me.
Gotcha.
My question is, I've been to Lisbon in the Geronimo Abbey, and there is a cloister.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I had to wait, I think, half an hour for my shot, and I had a 2-second time window.
Yeah.
For that shot, without people in it.
I've been there. I know what you mean. It's very, very busy there. It's an awesome building. That whole, it's like an abbey or something, isn't it? That whole place is incredible. But yeah, I know what you mean. The crowds are incredible. But in cases like that, then I'd be thinking about looking up and shooting over people's heads because you've got stunning interior details up top. So there's always a way around it. Even if you're including the crowd and just taking a series of images and using statistics or something to process it afterwards, where you're removing the people, or you're shooting such a long exposure that it doesn't matter that there are people, there's a way around it. The most important thing is to not let it annoy you and ruin your experience.
Exactly. All right, let's do this. We have Bobby, and then we'll finish up with Simon because we're up at the hour. Bobby?
I think I'm a travel photographer, but my photographs are very different from yours. And I think mainly I like to capture the culture of the country, the people, illustrating that children are really the same all over the world, whether they're blowing bubbles, feeding pigeons, or playing football. But when I did a trip to the Southern Oceans, then landscapes would be the priority. So I always find it difficult to define what is travel photography. Your travel photography is very different from mine. Or if I'm visiting Tiger's Nest, then it becomes architectural photography as well as cultural.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a dilettante.
So that's the thing. Travel photography isn't, as I said right at the beginning, but I didn't really finish explaining because you just pushed another thing. Where travel photography can be landscapes, or it can be people, it can be portraits, it can be animals, food, it can be any genre of photography, but it's that result that makes it travel photography. It's the result of making people want to be there. So whatever the actual genre of photography, with the subject and the clear genre that it already is, which in most of mine is landscapes, it's the result that makes it travel photography. As I said, of making the person want to be there. It can invoke some other senses sometimes, like maybe you can hear things, smell things, you want to taste things. There are other things going on in that image that invoke these other senses. But if you want to be there, then I've done my job right as a travel photographer, and it is a travel photo in that sense.
Awesome.
Yeah, also another way I choose my destinations, or have in the past, is to go places that I'm afraid will be different in a year or 5 years. I want to capture them as they are before they become like Washington metro area. So it's
definitely.
that kind of thing.
There's a chap called, there's a chap who's currently exhibiting called Ragnar Axelsson, I think his name is, and his whole thing is that he shoots glaciers. He does it in black and white, and there's lots of, even though they've been recognized by science, they're artistic images. And so, he'd be a great one to look at if that's something you're interested in. He shoots glaciers so that people can still see them because they're disappearing.
Awesome. All right, and let's finish it off with Simon.
Yeah, hi. Just a really quick one about tripods. So, are you shooting handheld, or when you go out and you're? I mean, obviously, with a lot of the waterfalls and what have you, when you've got movement, I'm sure you're using tripods. But how important is your tripod to you? And is there a particular type of tripod you use? Is that because I mean, obviously, you don't want to go out. I can imagine you probably don't want to lug anything out like a Benbow or something too heavy. But I was just curious.
Yeah. So I use three-legged thing tripods. My current go-to is the Bucky because it's lightweight, it's tall enough. I see a lot of people that are really sort of precious about gear, and the most important thing to them is the gear they have, the camera they have, the lenses they have, and then the other stuff, which bag, which bullhead, which tripod. And the thing is, as long as it works, it doesn't really matter. So I'm trying to save some weight and some space by using a smaller, lighter tripod, and I will always also have a platypod with me, so I can get a long exposure without necessarily needing the height of a tripod. It's something that just fits in your pocket, or you can clip it on. But yeah, there is a tripod in most of these places. I'll be walking around with a small backpack with a tripod, a platypod, and a couple of lenses, but I won't be going overboard because you can have all the gear in the world and it's not going to necessarily change the output, the final image. It's all down to you as a photographer. So yeah, tripod, very important, but you don't need like amazing, incredible, really expensive carbon fiber, whatever. As long as it has the ability to do its job, hold steady in wind and things like that, then it's the right one.
Awesome.
The answer, three-legged thing, Bucky.
All right. So, RG, I'll make an exception. This is the last question because we have to wrap it up after this. So I'll let RG ask. Fire away.
Sure. What do you do about location scouting once you get to a place? In other words, you want to take something a little bit different, but how much do you scout out beforehand in order to find that?
Quite a lot. So when I want to, obviously everything's led about why I want to go there and what I want to shoot. So obviously there's lots of planning involved in that. I'll be doing loads of research with Instagram and 500px to find what other people are shooting at particular locations. And then what's that? Location Scout, that's it. Location Scout is a website that shows where you can go, what you can get, what other people have got, but they'll be more specific, like I stood in this exact spot kind of detail. But then beyond that, I'll walk around and I'll spend a bit of time there. If I'm in the area, I'll visit the night before. I'm planning on going on a sunrise shoot, things like that, just to make sure everything's the way it should be. Because, like, you don't want to go somewhere and find that it's, I don't know, a city and you want to shoot a particular building, but there's scaffolding all around it and you're not going to get it. So you have to put in that little bit extra and do the extra scouting. So there's loads that happens beforehand, and then when I arrive, I'll do it again and I'll make sure and I'll see if there's any other views or any other angles, anything that I wasn't expecting. So there's quite a lot of scouting work that goes on.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great question. Well, hey, David, thank you so much for joining us. This was absolutely amazing. And you have an open invitation to come back anytime. Now, you're going to be at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Russell when? When is it starting?
Russell Brown's Rock and Roll Reunion. It starts Monday. I'm speaking on Monday, so I'm straight out of the way in the first one, so that means I can relax after that. And I'm flying out on Saturday, so I'm basically going to be getting ready tomorrow, and then I'm gone.
Gotcha.
And you'll be here. So that's in California. Then I'm going to go hang out with Mark Heaps for a few weeks over in Texas because, you know, why not? It's been a while since anyone's been able to go anywhere, so
that's true.
I might as well.
So what you're telling me is Kabasi and I can somehow sneak in, snag you for a day, and go somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we'll take Mark with us. It's always fun. Well, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, and I'll see you real soon. For everyone else, Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy these special presentations when we bring in special guests, because again, I kind of want to give you access to all of my friends and the things that I love and I see. And I know a lot of you absolutely love landscape photography and travel. That's why we brought Dave on. So please keep those requests coming in for photographers who you really like and want to hear from, and we'll try to get them on. All right? Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll see you at the next coffee break.